This is not my typical commute. Well, to be fair, it is my typical commute route, but it's not how I usually get there. Yep, that's right, I got an e-bike. And not just any e-bike, it's a cargo e-bike, the Globe Haul ST from Specialized. And the version that I got has the optional throttle and kid carry package. The kid carry package has a seat, handlebar, foot pegs, and a wheel cover to keep your kids' feet out of the spokes. You might be wondering why I've chosen to go full mammal on an e-bike. Seems unnecessary, and so does leaning over the bars. To that I would say two things. One, I've got serious range anxiety, and getting to work without the battery running out is easier if you're not weighed down by lots of aerodynamic drag. So I'm wearing form-fitting clothes and for the most part trying to stay as low profile as possible. And two, it's still 30 miles each way. If my butt's gonna be in the saddle that long, it's gonna have a chamois and Lycra on it. I've had this thing for a few weeks now. This has pretty much become my car. In fact, I'm on my way right now to pick up my son, take him to the orthodontist, and then go grocery shopping. And no, I don't walk into Trader Joe's looking like this. And nor do I spend most of my time hunched over the bars like this. Most of the time I'm riding pretty upright, but there are a few mitigating factors to that, not the least of which I'm running late. And while being aero doesn't make me faster necessarily on an e-bike, as they're capped at a top speed of 28 miles an hour, it does make me more battery efficient, and I do not have time to run out of battery on the way into work. I made it in this morning with 27% left on the battery, but I was riding it like I'd ride my road bike. My average power was about what I would do for an endurance ride, and the whole way in I was kind of bent over like this, trying to minimize my aero drag. On the way home though, I'm going to ride what I think is more representative of how an e-bike would normally be ridden. That is to say, I won't be putting as much power through the pedals. Now, if the bike still does its max speed, that says to me that the battery won't last as long because it's doing more of the work. And I might even use some of the throttle, which I didn't touch this morning. We'll see what happens. For reference, I am bolt upright right now, doing 120 watts, 130 watts, and doing 24 miles an hour, which seems about typical over the past couple of weeks that I've been riding this. It takes me about 130 to 150 to maintain about 24 miles an hour. And this is on level 1. It's got 5 levels. Let's talk about some specs. This is a one-size-fits-most bike. I'm 5'10" and my wife is 5'4", and we can both ride this bike because of how adjustable it is. The seat post moves away from the bars as it goes up, so the reach increases as you increase the saddle height. On top of that, you've got a lot of adjustability in the bar height as well as its rotation. It's got 160mm cranks, so probably shorter than you're used to if you're a roadie. An interesting choice, in my opinion, was the rear hub drive motor. I've never ridden one that I've liked, and I've ridden many, including the $10,000 Stromer. Specialized was going to have to do a lot of work in the test ride to convince me that I wanted to spend the money on a bike with a hub motor, and convinced they did. If you're new to e-bikes, you may be wondering what my beef is with hub motors. It's not that they're bad, it's just that they're a far more simple design than their counterpart, the mid-drive motor, which is probably why Specialized went that route to try to keep costs down. This bike is thousands cheaper than the comparable big box brand cargo bikes. How the motors work is really where the difference is. Hub motors generally use cadence to determine how much power to give you, whereas mid-drive motors use torque. So to put it another way, mid-drive motors take the power that you're putting through the cranks and add additional power to it. Hub motors take the speed at which you're pedaling and probably some math with how fast you're going based on the wheel's speed sensor to determine how much power to add. In my experience, this often results in a more jerky power experience. Mid-drive motors tend to be smooth across the power band, whereas hub motors can be herky-jerky. But I was pleasantly surprised. It's not as smooth as a mid-drive motor, but it's definitely smoother than any other hub motor I've ever ridden. In fact, it's pretty smooth up until you get to the top of the power assistance range, which is 28 miles an hour if you're pedaling.
That, by the way, is the top end of what is legal as a Class 3 pedelec in the United States. If you add the optional throttle, it can also be a Class 2 e-bike, which means it can be propelled throttle only up to 20 miles an hour. And with this, I really like the way that they apply power. Particularly because I often have a kid on the back, I don't want to hit the throttle and have it just take off. Instead, the initial ramp up is kind of slow, but it builds power pretty quickly thereafter. I test that out right here. From a complete stop at a red light, I use throttle only to get up to 20 miles an hour.
And at 20 already. If you're wondering how it does on hills, the answer is pretty well. Although I will say it will for sure affect your battery life if you're going up a lot of steep hills. Now I'm only going 9 miles an hour right now, but that's on assist level 1. If I bump it up to 5, suddenly we're now doing 20 miles an hour. So my battery life drops significantly. Even with judicious use of the throttle, we're 20 miles in, that's 2/3 of the way, and my battery still has 50% left. So 30 miles according to its estimate. I've only got 10 to go. I think it's pretty decent. Now I still haven't left level 1 assist, except for about 5 seconds worth going up that hill, but I haven't been doing much work either.
That is until about 30 seconds after I said that when I ran into Chris Reichert, who at the time of filming is the current NorCal Elite Road Race champion and just all around really strong rider. So I spent the rest of the time at level 5 doing 28 miles an hour to keep up with him. Remember when I said I was going to keep the effort low? Yeah, can you tell where that went out the window? With all of that, I found the 772 watt-hour battery really impressive. There's a lot going on with this bike, and a lot of it is covered on the website, which I'll link down below, just below the like button. Wink. But if you've got specific questions, hit me up in the comments. Do you want to see an in-depth range analysis? Do you want to see how it looks or handles with any of the various accessories you can get on the website? If you had an e-bike, how would you ride it? Would you make your commute faster for the same effort? Or would you get there in roughly the same amount of time, but with way less effort, or something in the middle? There's a lot we can and will get into about e-bikes in future videos, but for more commute content, why don't you click right here, and that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.